President Trump is delivering a speech at the Detroit Economic Club. He says he's there to report on what he calls the strongest and fastest economic turnaround in U.S. history. This comes as many Americans are still struggling to afford basic necessities. In fact, new government data shows that consumer prices remain stubbornly high. CNN's Kristen Holmes is covering the president's trip live from Detroit. Kristen, what's the latest there?
Yeah, Boris, we're hearing President Trump really try to sell his economic messaging here in Detroit. This is an opportunity for him to talk directly to the American people in a very critical state of Michigan about those economic policies. And there is a belief among the administration, among Republicans, that the best messenger when it comes to the economy is President Trump. This is what they want the president to be doing. This is what they want him to be focusing on, particularly as we go into this midterm election. And as you said, many Americans are still struggling. They are still finding it hard to afford their everyday life. Now, I will tell you, I talked to multiple people on the ground here in Michigan, and much like all of American politics, they were split almost evenly down the middle on people who thought that President Trump was doing a fantastic job when it came to the economy, that he was starting from the top up, that he was working as a businessman, to people who felt like they were struggling every day, that nothing had changed, that they wanted him to focus less on foreign policy, on this foreign intervention, and more on the economy. So again, talking about pretty evenly split here, but we're hearing him talk about is what he has done and what policies he has put in place that they are trying to sell as helpful to the American public, essentially saying that even if it's not helpful at this moment, these are things that over the next several months, years, will help the American economy grow. So you've heard, of course, President Trump talking about tariffs, talking about other policies that he's put in place, blaming the previous administration, something that we've heard before. But again, as all of this foreign policy looms, you are hearing him today stick with this economic messaging, something that Republicans had hoped that he would do.
Kristen Holmes, live for us in Detroit with President Trump. Thank you so much. Let's turn to CNN's Matt Egan now for what the reports show about the state of the economy as the president is promoting his policies. Matt, walk us through the numbers.
Well, Boris, the president has argued that he would give the U.S. economy an A+, but polling shows that Americans do not agree. Many Americans would give the economy much, much lower marks, and that's because while GDP is strong, which is something that we can expect to hear the president tout today, the job market is not strong, right? Look at this. The unemployment rate at the end of 2024, at the end of the Biden era, was at 4.1%. It has moved in the wrong direction to 4.4% at the end of last month. Now, even worse is what we've seen in terms of job growth. Job growth at the end of 2024 was pretty healthy, 200,000 jobs being added to the U.S. economy each month. It has now turned negative, with the economy losing an average of 22,000 jobs per month. Now, part of that is because the Trump administration has slashed the size of the federal workforce. But these numbers help show why people worry that if they lose their job, they might not be able to find another one. And the situation is even worse on the manufacturing front. This is roughly April when the president rolled out his Liberation Day tariffs, and you can see the manufacturing sector has lost jobs every single month since then, losing jobs 8 months in a row. So that manufacturing jobs boom that the president has promised, it has not arrived, at least not yet. When you look at the numbers overall last year, the U.S. economy gained less than 600,000 jobs. That's the worst for any year outside of a recession since 2003. Now, the news on inflation is a bit more mixed. We learned today that the inflation rate as of December was 2.7%. That is a step in the right direction from the end of last year. But remember, this doesn't mean prices are falling across the economy. It just means they're going up at a slower pace. When you look at some of the specific categories, some things have gotten cheaper. Look at this. Egg prices are down by 21% over the past year. Gas prices are near 4.5-year lows. New car prices, they've barely budged over the past year. But other things, electricity up 7%, natural gas 11%, ground beef 15% more expensive. That's the most since June 2020. And so, Boris, I do think this helps explain why the president has rolled out so many aggressive moves in just the past few days aimed at trying to address these affordability problems. That suggests that even he acknowledges that more work needs to be done, at least on that front.
Republican Congressman John James, he's an Iraq War veteran and serves on the House Subcommittee on Commerce, Manufacturing and Trade. Congressman, good to see you as always. While President Trump was in your home state insisting that the economy is doing great, the Michigan Democratic Party is citing a poll of Michiganders who were asked to grade Trump's handling of the economy, and the Democrats said twice as many respondents gave President Trump an F as gave him an A in that poll, I think from the Detroit News. What's your response?
Well, Michigan Democrat Party and Democrats around the country wouldn't give the president credit if he cured cancer from behind the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. The fact of the matter is people of Michigan remember Bidenflation that caused $1,000 per month increase in prices for Michigan families. But we also recognize the great effort that the Republican House and Senate and President Trump signing the One Big Beautiful Bill into law helps offset the cost of buying a new car. Car loans are now tax deductible. I'm also personally working on things to increase the affordability of housing and increase transparency in healthcare so that the people have the choice. The people recognize what's happening, and we don't measure the success of the economy by the stock market. We measure it at the grocery store. The cost of eggs are coming down. Affordability is a real concern, and that is what we're all focused on.
Well, as you say, affordability continues to be a real concern, and polls indicate that most Americans, hold President Trump, not President Biden, responsible. In addition to the measures you just outlined, what else do you think President Trump should be doing? Do you have concerns about the tariffs?
Well, when you look at what President Trump has already done by negotiating tough deals, he's brought trillions of dollars back in investment for manufacturing. Specifically, you have Stellantis is going to be investing $250 million in Michigan. General Motors, over the next couple of years, $2 billion in Orion plant. That's hundreds of jobs in the state of Michigan. Corning in mid-Michigan, $1.5 billion investing in additional jobs. These are things that would not have happened if President Trump didn't take a leadership effort. And this is a state that was hit hardest among all the states with NAFTA. 300,000 jobs, automotive jobs, lost in Michigan since 1995. And the president in his first term negotiating USMCA, which is a better term, and then also continuing to push to make sure that Americans aren't behind. Look, we are absolutely not going to move forward in the future while discarding people who worked so hard to build this country. Michigan is not afraid of the future, but we demand to be a part of it.
So last year, President Trump promised to revive American manufacturing. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics shows the manufacturing industry shed 8,000 jobs just last month. That's the 8th straight month of losses for an industry, which I don't need to tell you is critical for the Michigan economy. What can be done there?
Absolutely critical, and we can start by addressing our energy costs. The Green New Deal agenda that Gretchen Whitmer is pushing in the state of Michigan is absolutely ballooning our energy costs. And what does manufacturing need? We need sustainable, economical, reliable energy. And with these Green New Deal agendas and policies, it's increasing the amount that ratepayers, both residential and industrial, are paying. And frankly, we need relief. We need to have an all-of-the-above approach that actually works, that will lower our energy costs, which will continue to incentivize manufacturing jobs. I'm running for governor of the state of Michigan because I believe that we need the tax, tort, and regulatory reform to make Michigan a more attractive state to do business so that we can grow not just jobs, but grow job creators. These are the types of policies that are going to work in the real world, and I'm excited to bring that to the front over the next year.
On the economy, earlier today, President Trump addressed the Detroit Economic Club. Here's part of what he had to say on tariffs specifically.
Every prediction the critics made about our tariff policy has failed to materialize. The evidence shows overwhelmingly that the tariffs are not paid by American consumers, that they're paid by foreign nations and middlemen.
I mean, I don't know how accurate that is. Those tariffs are being paid for by American companies and American consumers. In October, Moody's Analytics said that your home state of Kansas was on the verge of recession, in large part due to tariffs and the impact on your state's farming industry. It's a sentiment echoed by the Kansas Farmers Union. What is the reality of the impact tariffs have had on farmers and others in Kansas?
Well, look, what I can tell you is that we have increased trade numbers in corn of some 10%, of soybeans is up 5%, and wheat is up as well. Sorghum not doing as well. And by the way, the president just gave the farmers another $12 billion. In total, the president has given the farmers $40 billion, taking, I assume, what I would consider some of that tariff money to make the farmers whole. Look, China never buys more than $20 billion worth of goods as well. The American farmer makes money is when we make a value-added product like ethanol, when we turn corn into beef or soybeans into pork, that's when the American farmer makes money right now. It's not the president's fault that Brazil is now competing with us and actually beating us in some of these grain prices.
The president has floated the idea of capping credit card interest rates at 10%. He also mentioned you specifically in a social media post earlier today, endorsing legislation that you've introduced, the Credit Card Competition Act. Tell us about that.
Well, our credit card bill, our credit card competition bill will lower the price of gas and groceries by 1 or 2%, and then capping interest rates at 10% would save American families another $150 a month. Look, Americans pay 7 times more each time you use that credit card than our friends in the European Union. That's because 2 credit card companies, 5 or 6 banks control about 80% of the market, and because that they're basically loan sharks. They're predatory loan practices, charging 30% interest, and again, our swipe fee 7 times what they're paying in the European Union.